Welcome to Lab OPEX Live. We are so excited for today. We have Angela Tomei Robinson with us. And so if you're coming in, just tell us who you are and where you're coming in from. I can see we already have some people waiting. I see somebody was already waiting on Facebook. So welcome. So we're broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So just jump in and tell us who you are and where you're coming in from. And today, so Angela, today we have a really interesting topic. Angela is going to tackle a lot of the subject areas that different people will probably just focus on just one thing. And Angela is going to tackle a wide variety of subjects. So Angela, welcome to Lab OPEX Live.
Thank you for having me, Lola.
So we're going to jump in because we have a lot to talk about, and we're just going to ask Angela to tell us a little bit about her background, her professional journey, and why she chose at this point to be focused on advocacy for medical lab profession.
Okay, I actually, as a high school student, wanted to be maybe a pathologist. But fortunately for me, I had great mentors with high school guidance counselors. And they told me, don't take a bio in BS and bio. What if you don't go on to medical school? What are you going to do with that? Go to clinical laboratory science. They named the schools that had the program. You can still be a doctor or have a career with a degree when you graduate. I got into clinical lab science. I loved the profession so much. I loved the internship. I decided I loved hematology, the microscope. I was staying. I wasn't going on to be a doctor. When I decided to take my master's, again, great college mentors. They told me, don't take it in education. If you want to teach, don't take it in hematology. Take it in management and minor in education. And I'm thinking, I will never want to be a manager. But I wound up becoming a supervisor and then a pathology manager. And then I became an associate admin director, which I loved, overseeing anatomic and then clinical pathology. So the home, my family, the laboratory is like family to me. So I was very, very involved in advocacy, but I was very involved in my hospital. The lab was always at the table. I always would ask, why are we not doing this? Why not? And I got involved with all of the PR for the laboratory. And then I got involved in professional societies such as ASCLS. I got certified by ASCP. And I wound up being very, very involved in the state of New York. Now that I'm early retired, I wasn't looking for a full-time job. I wanted to get involved more on a national level. So I got involved with Linked, not for looking for a job, but for professional networking, and met, individuals such as yourself and many others. And I'm on social Facebook pages for professionalism. And I'm out there mentoring others and hoping to get the laboratory more focused on a national level.
Awesome. Yes, that's how I met Angela on LinkedIn, because she is actually out there really advocating, really sharing her knowledge and her expertise and years of experience. So I know you say you're on LinkedIn, you're on different Facebook pages, but let me say hi to a few people. Yuva, hi, how are you? And you've follow this page a lot, and we probably should talk offline. I think where are you coming from? Somewhere in India? I don't know what time it is there. So thanks for stopping by. Hi, Tyree. Thanks for stopping by. And Anthony. Hi, Anthony. Hi, Aaron. Visibility is key. People forget about their HR departments. And Aaron is saying, so is mentorship as important as you said. So Angela is really a big advocate for the profession. So I know you've used different media. You said something about LinkedIn and Facebook. What other media have you been using in your advocacy?
Okay, in the beginning, in the older days, when I was younger, we used basically writing articles, and that's how I got involved, writing to lobbyists. to legislators, going to Albany, being in person lobbying. And I got very involved with the what's called the Professional Coalition. It was over 22 statewide and national organizations and unions that supported the fact that every technologist should be licensed. And we were very involved with booklets, and we had so much of what used to do years ago, we don't do as much today. We had buttons made up to promote the laboratory. We had bumper stickers, and I'm dating myself because we don't have those anymore. We had flyers, we had books, we had pamphlets, we did a rationale. That's how we did things years ago. Today, it's all social media. So I'm on professional Facebook pages, and I'm part of Linked. This is all new to me. My staff, when I did the early retirement, said without the pager, without the hookup, they call my umbilical cord to the hospital, I'm going to go crazy. So they told me about all of these professional societies and Linked to get involved in. I'm very glad I did, and I'm looking to expand. The networking is so important.
Yeah, and I think you told me a story of you being on television also. So,
oh yes, back then we used to do that too. I'm the kind of person, as I said, I always ask why, and then if someone says, well, we don't do that, I go, why not? And when we were going for licensure, I found out that the media didn't really know about us, as COVID has brought us into the limelight more, but back then we were not known at all. So I actually started writing to the newspapers as an ASCLS member. We got a newspaper, came in and did a whole article on our hospital. I wound up writing to the television shows, and I heard about Regis Philbin had problems with his kidney stone. So I wrote to him saying, do you realize those that analyze are not even licensed? He had us on, he took a group of us and brought us on his show, and he talked about licensure, and he supported it, and we gave him t-shirts and buttons and pamphlets, and he actually signed my poster from Lab Week. And then we were on the Today Show. We met Al Roker and we met Katie Couric, and they let us speak about the importance of the laboratory. So media is so important years ago, but it is also today. And the more we're in the media, the more the public will know about us, because the biggest problem we have is we're behind the scenes. So yes, I'm very big on public relations. I think we need media attention, we need industry support, and we need government support also.
So awesome, Angela. I hope that our audience are listening. So I know a lot of times we say, oh, we are introverts or we're behind the scenes, but I mean, sometimes we kind of develop that because our peers are, behind the scene, but we need people who are willing to take those leaps to be out there speaking. For you were willing to go on television. You wrote those letters, the states, you're like all over the place. And that's a really great role model for others to follow. And this is a great opportunity now that people are learning a little bit more about us, especially during COVID, to leverage the opportunity. So, wow, you've been doing this even before, social media. So that's great. Very
good. Today they told us that yesterday there was some type of New York City parade of essential workers, and the laboratory staff said, we don't think we were there. I've already contacted the mayor's office. I want to know, of the 14 floats and the 260 groups, was the laboratory represented? And I told everyone, right, the more we're out of the, as you said, behind the scenes in the lab, the more vocal we are and professionally, the more attention we'll acquire.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I love your energy. I love your spirit. So I know you also talk a lot about attract, recruit, and retain. And, some people, I've been talking to people and they're like, we have to focus on attracting the right people. And then somebody would say, the problem is retention. And so just having this conversation with you, you're saying, let's talk about everything. So let us talk about all of it and see if we could utilize everything, what difference that could make.
As I said before, Lona, I agree, it's attracting, recruiting, and retaining. We need to attract the best qualified. We don't have a lot in our high schools. I'm on health fairs. I'm on the school fairs. Anytime there's a high school fair, there's a career fair, I'm always there because I want to attract the young kids into this profession. When I was an administrator, we did a project volunteer. We actually allowed them to come in and do little tours, or we had them come in and do shadowing, high school and college kids, because a lot of them don't know about the profession. So we need to attract them into the clinical lab science curriculum, because these schools dangerously are starting to close when not having enough applicants. We need to attract them. And then I would say once we attract them and they graduate and they're in the workforce, then we need to retain the highly qualified. And that the whole attraction comes with mentoring, with the fairs, with the various shadowing programs. There's grants and scholarships given. A lot of them don't know about, that I try to promote, that the professional societies have. Then once we have them in the profession, we want to retain them. And that comes with compensation commensurate with their education, skills, and experience. And that comes with supply and demand. My biggest concern today is the corporations and running as a business. Their attitude is always do more with less. And their attitude is, since we can't attract enough and we have severe shortages in the lab, let's reduce the qualifications. You don't do that with nursing and doctors and pharmacists. You keep a high level standard and you bring the population to that. You attract them and then you retain them. You don't reduce quality standards. That's
Right.
not going to attract the best in the field.
Exactly. So, and that also is really attractive to me. When you actually have a high standard, it becomes very attractive to
Correct.
high standard people who have very high standard or well-skilled people. Instead of looking elsewhere, looking in nursing, looking other places, they're really attractive to the high standard. So there's this area of recruitment. So what would you say about recruiting the right people? How would you go about that?
In recruiting is what we're talking about, attracting them from the even grammar school, but the high schools and the colleges. So many students would come to me in their fourth year for a shadowing program and say, I have a bio or chemistry major. I just have a BS general major. What can I do with this? Then at that point, I try to transition them to the universities that will take transfer credits. You don't want them to go backwards. We don't want them with a 4-year degree go back and get a 2-year degree. They did that a lot. We want them to go forward. So if you're in high school and you don't think this might be for you, or you can't afford a 4-year, go to the 2-year. And then hopefully hospitals will, and that they did in my hospital, will give you the tuition to go on for your 4-year degree. But if you already have a 4-year degree, you should have options from universities to transfer credits, because you have most of the academic. You need the clinical internship and the clinical experience. But also there's master's degree in my neighborhood. So if somebody has a 4-year degree, some of my students went right on to a master's program that gave them the internship. So there's a lot of ways that we can help students go forward and not go backwards, and attract them early on. But again, we have an issue with the schools, because I was at a convention where some of the schools complained that because of licensure, their bio and chemistry majors can't just get to the hospital and get on the job training to just be chemistry or just be micro. And my issue, and I had high school guidance counselors there and high school teachers too. I said, why do you want to limit that student? That student should go to a clinical laboratory science program, get the generalist, and they can work in any area based on their competency. Why restrict them with a bio degree or a chemistry degree to just on-the-job training? So I had the high school teachers and the guidance counselors clapping for me, but some of the professors at the other colleges weren't too happy. But I said, work with the college, transfer your student into the clinical laboratory science program. So there's ways definitely to recruit early on and to get them even in college to continue and go forward.
Yeah, I love the idea. Instead of having that limiting mindset where we're so scared that we're like, just take them with a high school diploma, or just take them with a 2-year degree because we don't have enough. Instead, you're saying there are other options. Why don't, instead of doing the 2 years, you already have a biology, don't put them back, put them forward. Spend that extra year or so and and then do your internship and you have a 4-year degree. So I love that you're thinking it's like, put the standard where it belongs instead of limiting things we're limiting our profession. And then right now we're in a crunch where we're saying we don't have skilled medical lab scientists, but the encouragement is just accepting we're kind of lowering the bar. I love what you're doing to put the bar higher. And don't be afraid because, oh, we don't have enough people, so we're lowering the bar. That's not.
And that the supply and demand should also then be part of the retention. If there's supply and demand, there's competition. We have strong competition right now at our local hospitals. And if the young people, we were talking the other day, a little different than us, a lot of us stayed at the same place and we kind of put up with things. They're the type that I used to tell my boss, don't show them the door. They know where the door is. They know where the doorknob is. But they're good about, if you can't give me what I need, I already checked with down the block and they can give me what I need, I can go. And that competition is bringing up salaries, and more qualified people will come into a profession where they see they're being compensated and appreciated and respected accordingly. That's how we'll then retain our lab technologists, not doing more with less and not trying to overburden them with the short staffing and not trying to give them less qualified people to work with.
I love that. I love that positive approach. I really love that. So Courtney is saying New York is a licensed state and it is difficult finding licensed qualified staff. What do you recommend as a practical strategy to bring awareness to legislators in the state of New York? And Courtney is in New York.
Okay, well, New York, we're very fortunate to be licensed because across the nation, they're not giving that right to practice to all laboratory technologists. And that's what's going to bring us to the table. When we have right now professional societies fighting us for the expansion of Title VII authorization for federal funds for the programs to teach. We're trying to get us into STEM programs with the U.S. Department of Education. They're not seeing us as professionals as we are because we're not licensed in every state. In New York State, I've been hearing that there's some criteria that it's never supposed to be to disenfranchise anyone. It's supposed to be high standards to bring in qualified people. If there are issues with licensure that sometimes it's inadvertently restricting, then we need to review to revise. And if you watch the website, you will see great things happening because the more positive, constructive feedback we have, we're professionals that want to do the best for our profession, to attract and retain only qualified people, not to lower. The problem with legislators, if you complain, they'll just say, well, do what they did in Tennessee. We don't have enough staff. The licensure we felt was an issue, so let's just revoke it. I always say review to revise, never revoke licensure, because now they lost it in Tennessee. They lost it in Rhode Island. We're going backwards. It should be every state is licensed and then review to see what you need to improve. If you look at the webpage, you'll see one great change was apparently from the early board. They said that you must have molecular. And some of the applicants complained, well, I didn't have molecular that many years ago because it didn't exist. I was an educator. I told the board, yes, it was maybe a line in the chapter, then it became a chapter, then it became a book, then it became an encyclopedia. How can you restrict someone who has all the qualifications but not the molecular course? That was not even available back then. They revised it on the website because we have pathologists on our board where there's alternative courses you could take that would fit and would be approved. We did the same thing with immunology. Right now, we had an issue where one of the hospitals was looking to hire me. And I said, I don't want full time. He says, well, can I complain to you about New York State licensure? Why is it my Philippine applicants cannot get licensed because they never took the ASCP exam? And I said, Philippines is a great country. They bring in great qualified people. I know they take ASCP, but it's called international. And I said, well, I'll check with the board. There's a website I can give you. We checked and said, why is the ASCP International not accepted by New York State licensing? And they looked into it with the board. They checked with the lawyers. They checked with ASCP. And you look at the website, it's acceptable now. So you want to maintain high standards, but not inadvertently disenfranchise and not get a qualified person in. So it's a very careful balance. But we need to work together with constructive feedback and constructive information that we can help improve to make sure we're not losing qualified people. In New York State, because of the licensing, though, the competition is very severe now, which is helping out young applicants. Our local schools are flooded with applicants. They can't even hold all the people coming into the profession. And as they're graduating, they're picking and choosing what hospital they want. If they go to one place and somebody's paying more money, off they go. Better salary, better benefits. They want resourceful, supportive environments with great salaries. And I was just telling Lona, one of my ex-students who was working at a facility that I recommended her to work at, she came to me and said, I'm not happy there. I'm not getting the support I need. They didn't give me COVID relief. I'm not getting paid enough. They won't promote me. Bright girl. So I recommended her to another facility. They just hired her for $120,000, first-time supervisor. And I was like, wow, that's great. And that's what we need, because then she's out there telling everyone that this is a great profession. And this hospital gave me a great opportunity. And the hospital that did not treat her well lost her to a better facility.
Awesome. So, Angela, I'm going to ask you to kind of help us differentiate between licensure, certification, and even talk about union. But before we get there, I see we have a lot of engagement in the comments. A lot of people commenting. Let's see what, okay, Dr. Salas saying, Courtney, hi. That is a great question that deserves a well thought out answer. That I would enjoy a discussion with you on how to address this more thoroughly. Naturally, there needs to be a lab advocacy at the state and even national level. I would be interested in being a speaker at a legislative session. I think any topics would need to be high level so that politician can grasp the grave issue without having to grasp the technical data. But Angela gave a really great response to Courtney's question about the New York State license. I love the example that you gave, Angela, with being so much more attractive having licensure in New York. Apparently, people are looking for higher standards. So now you have very well-skilled people applying for those positions. So, you know, I love your analogy, even with your mentee, you know, that could vie for a job as a new supervisor for over 100,000. Michelle is also responding to Courtney. Let's hear what Michelle has to say. Hi, Courtney. We have the same issue in Florida. I'm running at a 60% vacancy for MTs. We cannot find permanent staff, nor can we find enough travel techs to support our operations. It seems as if that's all over, everywhere right now. That's where we are in terms of.
Do you know why too, Lona? I actually have articles here. And back in 2012, we were put down as one of the best careers to get into. And I thought that was going to bring loads of students into the programs, but we don't even have enough programs. But now the BLS has come up with, the Labor Board has come up, the Labor Statistics Bureau has come up with that we have a 7% increase every year, faster than the average. So we need to go back to that attracting and recruiting into the field, and we need more programs, and we need more interest of the students coming in, and then once they get there, to retain them. Florida is another licensed state, so that's good for them because licensure gives you that right to practice. But we need every state balanced with licensure, and what we call is an endorsement. We're looking into that, where if you come from another state that you're already licensed, there's an endorsement section. These are all solutions that we need, and the problem is they were not being addressed as they should have been years ago. The problem just got exasperated and got worse and worse and worse until we're in the situation where now when COVID hit, and they were shocked of how there were not enough lab techs. They didn't even know we existed. A lot of people think either you have a high school diploma to be doing the work in the lab, you simply push a button, or you must be a very intelligent doctor. And in Europe, you are a doctor. We have a lot of doctors that came over, couldn't pass their boards, and became lab technologists, and we're very thankful for them. So yes, the attracting, the recruiting is so important, and the retaining. You were asking me, Lona, about the licensure versus certification. A lot of people don't understand that within our own profession. Sometimes we're our worst enemy because we don't understand and we don't support and help each other in the field. Certification is an excellent professional standard, but it's professional. It's not viewed by the government. Now, even though I do have it here, the National Labor Relations Board gave us professional status federally in 1995. That's great for unions. And unions are very supportive of the laboratory. There's pros and cons. I never worked at a union hospital, but I did work with union representatives. The difference between certification is professional standard and licensure is government recognition and the right to practice. So your facility can decide, I want ASCP or I want AMT certification. But when it's a state license, you're required to have that license to work. And that safeguards you as a professional, it safeguards the profession, and it ultimately safeguards the public that they're serving. So there's a number of issues, as you said, we have to deal with because we're looking to expand the quality standards, to attract the quality standards. You don't want to hear, and you hear sometimes for students, well, I decided to go to PA school. I decided to be a path assistant. I decided to, those that love the laboratory should want to get into the laboratory, be in the laboratory, and stay in the laboratory with longevity. And the only way to do that is, again, going back to we need to attract, recruit, and then retain. And certification is that professional standard we need, but the licensure is that right to practice. Licensure establishes entry-level standards. It determines your body of knowledge and skills. It gives you a scope of practice. It enforces disciplinary standards also. If something goes wrong and you decide, I don't want that person working here, you can fire them. They can go anywhere else and work. That doesn't safeguard the public. It also ensures health, safety, and welfare to the public. Again, it's that ability and requirement to work in a field of study. It's that right to practice. It is very critical. I feel it's a big problem for us in getting federal funds, in getting state recognition, and getting legislatures, and getting the education department to include us with STEM, because we're not licensed in every state. And the professional societies are an excellent way to get motivated and get involved and have adequacy to acquire a lot of this, but they need membership. There's never enough membership. We need that strong voice. Mm-hmm. So yes, if there's anything about licensure that seems to not be working as it should, then we need to look, review, and revise, never revoke. We're very upset what happened in Tennessee and what happened in Rhode Island. We're trying to get it back for them.
So how would you compare like other profession? I hear people talk about the hairstylists and, and everybody else. Why is there a difference with medical lab scientists compared to doctors, nurses, and everybody else?
On social media, somebody who supported licensure as a lab technologist said, do you realize in taxidermy, there's hundreds and hundreds of licensing across the country in every state. She says, I'm not saying it isn't a skill or a valuable profession for taxidermy, but it definitely can't do any harm to a living being. Yet you have to have a license to perform it. Everything we do in the laboratory is related to patient care. So why should we not be licensed? And doctors are licensed, nurses are licensed, pharmacists, respiratory therapists, occupational therapists within the medical field. But beyond that, your hairdresser, your manicurist, your interior decorator, your dog groomer, they're all licensed in these states, and yet the laboratory professionals fail to be licensed. There's a great article that I used when I presented on a national level about 2 years ago for licensure. And the article said almost anyone can perform your medical laboratory tests. Wait, what? Your barber, your realtor, your electrician, your massage therapist are all licensed, but so few states are US licensed. And that was written in 2015 by Dr. Rodney Rode, who I didn't know who he was, but I loved his article. And thanks to Lincoln, I've met him and we network very well now. So yes, I believe if we would acquire licensure in every state, be on the same status, deemed status as doctors and nurses and pharmacists, we will get that federal and state and industry support and education support that we're not getting, because we're not a licensed profession in every state.
Wow, thanks for just having these conversation, Angela, because I did not see it the way you explained it makes a big difference to me. I didn't see the significance of it. I just thought, well, you have the body of knowledge, you have your boards, you can practice. But that recognition by the states or by the government or by people who are going to fund us. That makes a difference when they know that we have that standard. So, I never looked at it that way.
None of us did. When I first got involved too, when they first approached me, I got involved with ASCLS and I was doing letters and writing, and they said, get involved with licensure. I go, why? I'm a professional, ASCP certified. I'm very happy that way. And they explained to me, and the more I delved into it, and the more I got involved, and the more I networked with my medical professional colleagues, I said, no, this is something we definitely need in order to get that clout and status that the other medical professionals have and we don't. It shouldn't be that anyone can work in the laboratory. And it shouldn't be that I can pull anyone off the street and train them on the job training. We have a scope of practice, a body of knowledge. What I liked in 1995, and that's how long ago this happened, it was the National Labor Relations Board. They were complaining that medical technologists were put in with the manual laborers. Now, nothing wrong with that. My father was a manual laborer, my brother is. But we're professionals, and we shouldn't be in the wrong category of even a union. Well, in 1995, the National Labor Relations Board said that our profession is predominantly intellectual and varied in character. It's consistent with the exercise of discretion and judgment in performance. It requires a specific body of knowledge to perform that work, and it cannot be standardized in relation to any given period of time. So because of that, they said the nature of medical technologists is intellectual, requiring independent judgment and discretion. They are indeed professionals. So anyone who belongs to a union, if you're not in the professional sector, they're not holding by the government federal regulation. But seeing us as a professional is excellent and should have been the board to get us to state licensure in every state. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. We had it in, I believe it was 12 states, and we're down to only 10 now. So we can't have this backward movement. We have to look at it as, if you're a nurse, a doctor, a pharmacist, they're all medical professionals for the safety of the public, and they have their right to practice and their license. We need that same status.
Wow, awesome. So there's a lot of comments. I think some of them were much earlier. So let's see where we are with this. Okay. We already went through this one. Yolanda is saying hello. Yolanda, I hope you stay on. I think Yolanda usually pass by and say hi. Aaron is saying Florida is a licensure state. I'm hoping we keep our licensure in place.
Yes, Aaron. Aaron is a great person.
Yes.
Congratulations on your under 40 award.
Yeah. So let's see. Dr. Stallers is saying, I think of this as a leaking bucket. If you have a hole in the bucket, but can compensate quickly enough to fill the bucket with water, the bucket retains water. If you plug the leak and fill the bucket, now you can fill the bucket at a much slower pace and still retain water. We have been losing lab professionals for quite a while now, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. My thought is what we do, that we do both. So I think that is in reference to licensure. Because a lot of people may think that even in states that have licensure still have just like 60% or 50%. But I think this is affecting all states in terms of the amount of medical. And as you say, your method is to attract, recruit, and retain, and do all of this. And attracting, when I think of licensure, is really putting the standard high enough to attract the right people and still keep them. So you want to respond to Dr. Stalos on this one, Angela?
In what way? That what you said is true, that in summarizing, we need to attract, recruit, and retain, as we've been saying, and licensure would give us that high qualifications. What also I think she's talking about is true, is that there's short range goals and long range goals. And the problem with the industry for the medicine when it comes to the laboratory is always short range. You know, what can we do right now to fix the problem? How can we get around this right now with workflows and work schedules and just maybe bringing in some assistance? They never were looking long range, that we need to really get more of our programs teaching clinical lab science. I actually tell our students that when you graduate from clinical lab science as a background, as a bachelor's program, you have technical meticulous skills and education that most of the other degrees do not give you. And you definitely have a career with your degree. In my going about for 40 years as a lab technologist in all my different areas I've been in, I would meet individuals either in sales, I would meet a resident, I would meet somebody in IT and a nurse. And just the way they would talk and be so meticulous in quality control and quality assurance, meticulous, I would just turn around and say, what did you do before you did this? I'm telling you, each and every time they said, I used to be a lab technologist, and I knew it. I just knew how they handle themselves with the discipline and the nature of quality control and quality assurance. So we need to bring this profession into a point where people want to come into clinical laboratory science, want to graduate with it. And as much as there's so many opportunities in healthcare and beyond, hopefully keep a lot of them in the field. We're at a point right now where there's a lot of retirement going on, and that's why we're feeling the crunch, especially with COVID. But look what happened recently when some of the states had given executive orders to allow non-licensed individuals to perform, or someone licensed in a different profession like nursing or residency to do laboratory tests. We had chaos because they're not trained the way we are. They don't have the same thought pattern. They don't have the same significance of the quality control and the quality assurance. So we had a lot of chaos. You heard reports of a lot of, indirect testing, and they had a lot of false negatives, false positives. They blamed it on the reagent. They blamed it. The lab technologists are the ones performing, analyzing, managing the laboratory. You need the best qualified people doing that in order to get your best qualified standards of testing for the public. And that is so crucial and so critical.
So we're used to quality control. We know when things are out. Quality control is so important to us that we're not going to report something that the QC is out. Whereas for someone who is not used to that, may think that, the test is fine. I'll just repeat the QC afterwards, after I report it, because their thought process is so different.
I worked in a doctor's office where they hired me as a consultant. I eventually started doing the lab testing. They had a medical assistant, and it's not her fault. She wasn't trained, but she would just waste reagent and waste so much of the doctor's costly reagent and supplies, just rerunning the QC over and over and over and over and over and over and over until it finally came in, where I just come in and say, no, you have to troubleshoot the instrument. There's a problem with specificity, problem with sensitivity. You have your quality controls off. And then once I fixed everything, the quality control came in right away. And I told the doctors, look at the money you're saving, having the right person. So they eventually hired a lab technologist to run their lab so I can stay as a consultant for them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So Erin is saying that Edward Peterson, I've got some friends on NACL's board of directors. I figured Angela has some great tips. Thanks for the suggestion. Somebody suggest, I hope, I don't know if I missed something from Edward Peterson, but apparently there was some suggestion there. So here. Compelling case would be made if those MTs that are hospital trained are required to work at that hospital after for so many years. Oh, we're talking to each other here, but I'm not seeing some of the comments apparently, because I'm not seeing Yolanda's comments. This is because that cost of losing an employee is equivalent to 4 to 5 times their salary. The downside may mean that should the MT leave the hospital shortly after graduation, then there could be a financial consequence. So she's responding to
retain them.
Yes, it's better to keep. All right. So what I'm going to ask you, because you have a lot to share, and I'm sure that there's been a lot of interest from our audience. So what would you recommend? How could they get involved? How could the audience get involved?
Okay, I firmly believe that one individual can make a difference, but a group of individuals can make all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. We need more professional membership, whether it's ASCLS or ASCP or it's CLMA or AACC. find a professional society that suits your needs and join it and be active. They work and they collaborate very well together, all these professional societies. But my personal preference was to be involved with ASCLS because they're of for and by lab technologist. But I'm also ASCP certified. The point is that when you join a professional society, then be active. It's not just paying a due. They need you to write letters. They need you to text. They need you to email. They need you to be part of a petition. Join that and be part of it. I always tell our retirees now, don't just go away. I say, you're going to be home a lot. You can be writing to legislators, writing to the media. Every chance I get on Facebook, every chance I get with the media, I send out. Laboratory Week in my hospital was a big event. We had the mayor involved. We had the Nassau County involved, the town councils involved. The state gave us government proclamations. You need to get active where the public sees you. For Laboratory Week, I used to put up a bulletin in the main lobby, and I was the only one that did that. Well, we were such a big hit with the public, with picking up literature and picking up little games for kids to play about the lab and washing hands and all the literature from the colleges, that everyone else wanted their week. So it got to the point I had to, in advance, make sure that I reserved my tables and my boards because all of a sudden everybody else wanted the same thing. So each of you, if you join a professional society, nursing has 95% membership. They're very strong. Aside from being in the limelight, we're behind the scenes and we have 50% memberships. We need to double that. We need much stronger so that we can go after the federal government and the state governments and the industry and the corporations and get involved with STEM so we can attract and recruit and then retain. We need that strong voice of a professional society. And each one of you can do anything. Anytime there were complaints around Lab Week that, I don't know, Starbucks was doing something for during Nurses Week, but didn't do anything for Lab Week. I said, write to them. Everybody write to them. They watch a TV show and they tell me they misrepresented the lab. Write to them. Do you remember this old show called St. Elsewhere? It was an old soap opera. They kept on showing a little lab with one person, and then there was food in the blood bank refrigerator. I wrote to them all the time, and I told them, if that's your hospital, my patient deserves to be elsewhere. You just have to keep constantly being active and being proactive and being out there. As you said before, Lone, you can't just stay in the lab and be quiet. And everybody likes to complain. I see that a lot on Facebook. Venting is very good, but then be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Get involved. And I'm always there willing to mentor and willing to guide and help. As I said, I've helped a lot of individuals with licensure if they need to. I gave them some direct contacts and we move things forward. I think I was just telling you before, there was some type of essential workers parade they said in New York City, and everybody was complaining on Facebook, was the lab involved? I said, did anyone ask? I wrote to the mayor already. I emailed him. Was the lab part of this? And was the lab part of any of your floats? And was the lab recognized? So being in a professional society gives you that strong voice in a national sense, but you can also individually do so much. I just wrote to Regis Philbin about his problem with his stones, and the next thing I know, I'm on his television show. So little can do so much, and there's too few of us trying to do so much. We need everyone to help us, and everyone work together. And as I said, venting is good, venting releases, but then you need to have positive outcomes. You need to be part of a solution, and attracting and recruiting and retaining is so important, especially now more than ever because of the major turnover we're having of retirements.
Wow, I love that. And I heard about a story, I think somebody had that on Facebook too, where they were actually commending the essential workers. And there was a medical lab scientist in the crowd who said, did you mention the lab scientist?
Good.
And they came back and did a whole thing on medical lab scientists just by someone saying, so there was a big article or, going around on social media about that. So just opening up your mouth and saying something can make a difference, because a lot of time it's more about knowledge. People don't know. And we say we're behind the scenes, and that's the only way people will know more about us is by us being visible and vocal and advocate. So I love what you're doing.
Exactly, Lona. You know, even that National Labor Relations Board in 1995, it started with the one medical technologist, the name back then. I like that we're trying to recruit to have one name. That's a problem. We have too many names. But medical technologists back then went to his union and complained, I am not to be part of the manual laboring. I'm to be part of the professional. He took it all the way with the professional society supporting him to the National Labor Relations Board to get that professional status we needed. That was one lab tech in one hospital in one state. So there's so much that each of us can do together and individually also. I think I may have mentioned to you too that there was 1 year with employee appreciation. Our techs used to be the higher paid, even higher than nurses. We petitioned, we wrote, we were always a great group in unity. But 1 year they felt things were going backwards. Nurses were getting all the publicity and the money. And this employee appreciation, our lab techs came to me and said, we know how you are. You want to be part of everything, but we're going to boycott. And I said, okay, think about this. You're going to boycott an employee appreciation so you don't exist. The lab is not even there. They already act like you're not there, so they're not going to miss you. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to go. We're going to have 2 or 3 tables together, so we're loud together, supporting each other. And as everyone gets their award, we're going to stand up and make noise. And then we're going to bring our own reward, our own awards we created for our 20, 25, 40-year-old employees to show how we support each other. Do you know, besides making a lot of noise, and for some reason they picked the 3 tables next to the bar, but that's okay. I dealt with that. But do you know that we wound up being center page articles in the hospital and then in the local community papers? We didn't boycott. We went there and let our voices be heard.
I love that. You know, I always say, I know we have the tendency to say, okay, let's not give service, and they'll see how much we're important. And I've had a lot of meetings where a lot of people who are high up in pathology would try to withhold service. And I would say, I don't think that's really the best way to do it. Withholding service, and you know, it's like a lot of friction. You know, there's more about fighting against the other group instead of collaborating, working together, showing this is what we have, this is what we can contribute, and people value you and respect you more than when you're withholding and fighting and creating friction. So I love that idea. That was a great idea. Instead of being mad, you guys were, you know, just throwing a lot of support for each other, you know, celebrating and creating a lot of positivity that they could not ignore you. Be so good they couldn't ignore you. I love that. Let's see what Aaron is saying here. Any advice for going to the C-suite to start a hospital-based MLS and MLT program? Any resources you'd recommend?
That's interesting. I like to take that offline with you, Aaron, and see what's available and see what we can do. Because again, I'm early retired now, so I'm not dedicating my whole life to my hospital, my community, my state. I'm available now on a more nationwide basis to see what we can do to work together.
Yeah, and I could give you some tips also, because that's basically what I promote, like being visible, working at that level, being seen, showing what you're doing in terms of ROI and impact, collaborating with other healthcare teams, not just working in isolation or in silos, and showing that impact. I know we went over, as usual. Always have a lot of great stuff to talk about. Courtney's saying, excellent topic this evening. Thank you for sharing your valuable insight. And Aaron is saying, getting involved is key. So how can everyone keep in touch with you, have this conversation going? I know you're on LinkedIn and other places. So what's the best place to
The best is on LinkedIn to reach me. I'm always on the chats and I'm always answering. So that's the best way right now to reach me. I'm new to social media only this past year, but as again, I'm thinking it's great networking and it's a way to reach out on a national level and get more involved. But again, I ask everyone to think about joining professional societies, the one that's best for you. They collaborate, but make sure the one you join is giving you what you want and need for your money. And there's so much that the professional societies are doing in the federal government, in the state government, in industry, and in education to promote us. And one of my favorite stories is what happened in Hawaii, because they see, you don't have hundreds of students graduating from the program. In Hawaii, which is a licensed state, thank God, they decided to close one of the clinical programs, the education programs. The professional societies went with the educators and explained how important laboratory medicine is. They saved the program. So the program is still open and graduating qualified lab technologists that are coming to the program and graduating them into the hospital world. So it's so critical to be motivated, be involved, be part of a professional society. You don't have to join a lot of committees, but when they ask for volunteers and support, when there's a petition for you, sign it. If there's a letter writing, they usually give you a form letter. You can just use a similar form. Emails are so easy. In Tennessee, I can't tell you how many times I was emailing the governor in Tennessee. They need that. They need to see that the laboratory supports each other, supports us as a profession, and we want to safeguard the profession, the professional, and the public we serve. And we need to do that individually and as a group.
Wow. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you for being there, for just putting everything into advocacy and being such a role model to many. And hopefully after this session, people will be motivated to do more, to get involved. I mean, I know for sure I learned a lot, and it makes me, especially when it comes to licensure, and I was confusing like certification. So you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
And, I mean, I'm glad this is here it's going to be recorded. All of you, could you please share this out? I think so many will benefit from this. It's going to be recorded, but I'd really love for you to share it out. Hit the like button so more people can see this, because this is really a valuable live broadcast. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for participating. We always have some amazing guests. And Angela, you did justice to this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys. Bye. Please share this and hit that like button. Thank you. Have a good